what is it? It's in progress. Sorry, my phone's making all these noises. So I'm actually growing a bed. I have to grow a bed because I fly into Singapore on Wednesday, and over the next 3 months, I visit 6 nations from Indonesia and into East Malaysia, Sabah, Sarawak, and Borneo, Kalimantan, and back up into India and also Nepal. And wow. So so I'll be away from New Zealand for a little while. So I feel for you guys that are a little bit trapped in New Zealand with the mandates, because Switzerland doesn't have any.
Right. And is COVID very common there, or is it people just don't even recognise it?
There's 40,000 people a day that are, obviously the older people is concerned with having COVID, but they just live with it. I think they were the second nation in the world to actually just clear them all. They knew it wasn't going to work. So following the UK's leading, they now, I mean, it's just like, you got to wear masks on the public transport, but everything else is pretty much dropped. So anyway, as I said before, I had an opportunity. It was a window for me to travel up to Switzerland to have a look at various organisations that deal with human sex trafficking. And also, I have a friend that has a work called Project Tajikistan, and I'll share some links with you for my friend Marina. She does an amazing work in Tajikistan. They will be highly affected with the what's actually happening in the Ukraine and with Russia, which is a very touchy subject at the moment. But however, I'm just praying that that humanitarians all the way around the world could bind together and come up with some solutions, even if it's to feed, to help with medical supplies, to utilize connections to actually bring peace in some way to nations that are struggling. So I'm aware of that process that's happening in Ukraine at the moment. And so if there's an opportunity for me to bypass somewhere along the line on my journey away from New Zealand, then I'll look into that. So so that's why I've got my bed.
Owen, would you like to give our audience a bit of an insight into your history and life in New Zealand, and where you come about to be where you are today?
Yeah. So my name's Owen Pomana. I come from a family of 6, 2 boys and 3 elder sisters. I'm the youngest. I turned 51 the other day here in Switzerland, so it's my 51st nation that I've been to. So we came from a little hometown called Puketapu in the Hawke's Bay region, and so my late dad was a shearer and the shearing gangs, and my mum was a nurse, and so anyway, we had the privilege and honour of being able to have an education. The farmers really liked my mum and dad, so we went to Hatapalda Mighty Boys College in Fielding, and my sisters went to Hatapahoepa Māori Girls College in Napier. And so, we were keen sportsmen. You know, coming from a poor family, we excelled in rugby, and so we played rugby all the way up, even through high school for Hawke's Bay, my brothers, and me Manawatu. And then I actually went into the Royal New Zealand Navy for 7.5 years. And so, 17 years old, I joined the Royal New Zealand Navy. I joined as a seaman gunnery rate, done a few courses overseas in Cerberus, which is the Australian academy. And then I did a Navy Ships Divers course. But also, one of the highlights of my serving in the Royal New Zealand Navy was peacekeeping in Rabaul in Papua New Guinea, and also leading a national, international, multinational armed forces kapahaka group on Hanya, Crete, for the 50th celebration of the Battle of Crete, where the 28th Māori Battalion fixed bayonets and charged Rummel's army. So it's one of the amazing memories that I have from the Royal New Zealand Navy. And then I tried to get a entrance into the New Zealand SAS, but I couldn't get a release. So I actually left the services, and I became I did a personal trainer's course, strength conditioning coach, and I got into the sport of bodybuilding. And so I represented New Zealand at national and international level. 1997, I became, I got fifth at the World Naturals in America. At that stage, I fell in love with the most beautiful girl in Napier. And, my ambition was, I'm going to marry this girl. And all my friends knew that she was good looking. And anyway, never really say this to your best friend, when you're going away, look after my missus, look after my girlfriend. Anyway, when I came back from America, there was some bad news waiting for me, that my best friend was having a relationship with my girlfriend who I wanted to marry. And so, after a state of depression, a couple of nights drinking, I decided to confront that issue. And I turned up on the doorstep, drunk and disheartened and broken. And anyway, I wanted a confrontation. She said, "Oh, listen, I'm going to call the police on you." I said, "Well, call the ambulance too." And so it didn't go down really too well. But that was my first real depression in my life, especially through rejection. And so I wanted to commit suicide. People do desperate things, in the heat of a moment or something. And that's what I experienced. And I know this to be true with a lot of people when they face conflict or they don't know how to deal with problems. Is you think in your mind, no one really cares, and you think that you can battle depression by yourself, but the reality is that you can't, because what trauma does is it puts you in a place of, the remembering things that have taken place. And so that was me. I was, what's wrong with me? And, how could this happen and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, thank God the cliff was too high. I was going to jump off it, but, it was too high. So 2 hours of saying nasty things to God and all sorts of things of God I didn't know. And anyway, my friend just said, "Listen, don't worry about Napier. Come up to Mount Ruapehu and let's go snowboarding, and I'll get you a job at the local pub there." And that's what I did. And I was just bitter and angry, and I was just getting into fights with people on the mountain. And then I had an altercation with the local mongrel mob, and ended up chucking a couple of prospects out the window. And I had a message from one of the bouncers who said, these people are going to cut your head off. You better go now. So I thought, well, you know what? I'm just going to leave New Zealand. And I packed my bag, had $500, said goodbye to my mum, and I ended up in Sydney, in the red light district, King's Cross, of all places. I visited that place when I was in the Navy, but after about 2 weeks living in a hostel, backpackers, I ran out of money. Second mistake that people do in their life is not let your family know actually what's happening in your life, or even ask for help. And so slumping into a deeper state of depression, I became homeless. I didn't really know that there were places like churches and food bank, that could give me food. And so in my embarrassment, I found a cardboard box, and I ended up living in a park called Rushcutters Bay, just off the top of King's Cross. The actual cardboard box was to shield me from the shame, because people going past think, "Oh, this guy's homeless." And I'm educated, Royal New Zealand Navy, a sporting profile. All of a sudden, I was living in a cardboard box and depressed and suicidal, broken. And and so this was the hardest part I had to share with my life story. I don't know if most of you know that I'm actually I'm a Christian, so not a religious one, but as we go on, you see why I'm like the way I am. But I ended up selling my body for a blanket and some food. Really, I became a gigolo. One of my friends was a dancer in the Australian Manpower, and so I was hungry. hardest thing I've ever had to share was this part of my life story, because most people know about my criminal history, as you're about to hear. But the reason why I can move in the circles of human sex trafficking, red light district sort of stuff, is because I know how that system works in some form of way. But anyway, in that desperate need for myself, that's what I did to eat food, really. And so that really screwed me up. And when I first shared that story was with a Christian pastor, I felt that he was so embarrassed that I shared that part of my story. But it is what it is. Do you know what I mean? And so, like, there's going to be people out there whose sons or daughters are doing things, and they don't know who to talk to. They don't know how to get out of these things. And so, for me, 12 years on, being 51-year-old man, that was part of a story that was hidden in my heart for a while, until I felt led that God was saying, you need to share the whole of your story so I can open up an avenue for you to be able to speak into that space, in which I am now. And so I was walking past this pub in King's Cross, and these big bouncers were on the door, and they said, "Do you want some work?" And I was looking to actually leave that sort of work. And I went for a ride with a couple of big Kiwi boys, and I didn't really know that they were heavy debt collectors. And so I was going in this car to go and do a heavy debt collection. And so under the seat, he goes, "Owen, there's a bag under the seat there, and that's yours." I said, "What is it?" "You have a look." When I opened it up, there was a balaclava and a sawn off 12 gauge shotgun. I thought, what are we going pig hunting? He goes, "What do you think? They're just going to give us the money?" I thought, "You're kidding me, right?" He goes, "No, you can get out of the car if you want." I never got out of the car. And so that was my introduction into knocking on some doors with some pretty heavy debt collectors. And so it wasn't too long. I was looking down prison time. So I remember getting my first set of handcuffs on. And that brings back a memory. I was so fearful about going to prison. You know the reason why I was fearful of going to prison? Is because, many of us watch lots of movies, and in movies I watched was everyone who goes to prison is going to get raped. And I thought, there's going to be some big black man named Bubba, 180 kilos, and I'm not getting raped by a man in prison, right? And so one of the books I read when I was in the Navy was Sun Tzu, The Art of War. And in that dialogue, it tells you actually cognitive dissonance, how do, the enemy, just the world in war, have a look to the strategies of Sun Tzu. So anyway, I knew that book, and I thought, well, I'm just going to knock out the biggest person I see when they open the when I got into the quad, and that's what I did. I ended up knocking out the biggest guy in prison, Silverwater Prison, and then one of my best friends today, he's no longer in the Bandidos, but he became my best friend in prison. And anyway, it was one of those things. I didn't want to let them know that I wasn't going to get raped by any man in prison. And so I made a name for myself. So when I got out of prison, I had a very, very, very bad man. You can Google his name. His name's Bassem Hamzy. He's doing life in prison. He's at present in Australia. If you're looking at the Gangs of Oz series, you'll see stories of the Alameddine family and the Hamzy family. Bassem Hamzy put my bail up when I was wanting to get out of prison, but look, I didn't know that Bassem at that time was following after the teachings of Osama bin Laden. This is crazy. He's got a long beard and stuff like this. But anyway, he put my bail up, and when I got out of prison, it was like a dog going back to its vomit. Really, I ended up moving from Sydney up into Brisbane, and I took on the role as a hired gun for hire mediator. At that stage was I was on drugs. I've taken just about every single drug that there is, from heroin to smokable heroin. There was methamphetamine, ecstasy. The big one for me was methamphetamine, which is just a terrible drug. And so I really became insane. And the turning point of my story is I got into trouble with the Hells Angels in Brisbane as a result of doing some work for them. I was beaten just to the edge of my life with 5 men with steel hammers, and they put me in hospital. And they had a piece of carpet out. They were going to wrap me up and take me into the swamp and bury me. But anyway, I cheated death that day. And when I got out of the hospital 24 hours later, I rang that man, Bassem Hamzy. You can Google his name. And I rang him and said, I'm going to spot a bobber. And he goes, how can I help you? And I said, well, I want a rocket launcher. All right. Google Bassem Hamzy and you'll see 10 stolen rocket launchers from the Australian Defence Force. He had 10 of them. One of them was coming up to me. And I was sitting in this room, right? And I was smoking methamphetamine, thinking about how I'm going to rocket launch the Hells Angels in Brisbane. And God just intervened. I make no apologies for my strong Christian witness, but anyway, God's quite funny. He put this vision or this movie just appeared in my head, and it was all these kids, crying. And I said to the open vision, what are these kids crying for? And the voice said, they've got no dads. I thought, oh, that's really dumb, right? I still had some compassion and mercy in my heart. And then I saw a picture of my mum come into my mind, and I thought, I got to ring my mum. And so I rang my mum, and she was quite surprised. She said, is that you, Owen? I said, yeah. She said, I haven't heard from you in a while. Are you okay? And I said, no, I'm not really good. And she goes, you can come home if you want. I said, no, I can't come home. She said, are you going to prison, back to prison? I said, yeah, I'm going back to prison. I said, Mum, I'm really screwed up, man. I'm done. I just want to apologize. And you're not the reason why, my heart is broken and I've been going in and out of the prison. I just said, I've got a broken heart and I just don't know how to express it, but I love you, Mum. And I hung up the phone. I went back to my drawer. At that stage, I had a lot of guns, and I grabbed the 45 and I loaded the clip up with full metal jacket rounds, grabbed the crack pipe, and I went down to the beach. It was in 2005. I remember it just like yesterday. I chose that time because I thought, well, there's no one going to watch me blow my head off. And I had a puff on that methamphetamine. I cursed God. I said, if you, God. I pulled the trigger. I was straddling my chin like that, and I pulled the trigger and it went click. That gun never jams, right? And so I thought, well, what the heck's happening here? And when I went to sit down, there was a lump in my back pocket. And I hadn't worn those jeans for a while. And actually, I reached behind and pulled it out. It was a little Gideon's Bible. I had brought back a memory of a friend of mine who used to come to my place to smoke crack. And if you knocked on my door and I knew who you were, you'd be like friends of mine. I'd come in. So my friend Ben, he came to my place and knocked on the door. I said, come in. He goes, no, I'm not coming to your place ever again. So what's that? He goes, you're going to laugh at me, but I'm going to church. I started laughing. You're kidding me, right? He goes, no. And he goes, I've got you a gift. I thought, sweet, give me some crack, right? And he put that book in my hand. I just about dropped it. I said, what's that? And he goes, it's Bible. What do you want me to do with that? He goes, you can read it if you want. I said, well, what am I going to read that? You're off your head. So anyway, so I'm sitting on this beach. The guns hasn't gone off. I'm in a really big state of depression. And so I said, God, I don't know how to read this thing, Bible. Can you just talk to me? And so I randomly opened the book up. You don't read a Bible like that, obviously. But I opened it up to Psalm 23. It said, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. For your Lord are with me. Your rod and staff, they comfort me. I don't even know what a rod and staff is, but some valley facing some sort of death. Well, I was in that place. So anyway, I thank God. But God was about to use another friend of mine who is what they call a backslidden Christian. He knows all about God and knows the scriptures and reads his Bible. But he also comes to my place to smoke crack. And so this man I'm about to share with you now, Pastor Ken, he passed about 3 months ago now. was the influential man behind why I'm doing what I'm doing now. A man with compassion and kindness, who met me in my deepest, darkest place. And so anyway, he's having an argument with my friend Bruce, and the argument turns really sour, and he tells him to get out of the car. So anyway, Bruce has this intent in his heart, and he goes, I'm just going to take him over to Owen's place. He's going to get a beating. But I actually had a radical encounter with the kindest man I'd ever met. You can Google my story. My story is so long. There's also the band Preacher that you can have a look at on YouTube, done from Māori television 6 years ago, and that'll go into the in-depth part of my story. But what I want to tell you is that this man, although he was a pastor, I didn't understand the language he spoke, or that's the words, because he's obviously a Christian pastor, and he was so relentless. I mean, he used to turn up on my place all the time, knock on the door, and I'd be hosting all these bad gangsters. They all got guns. And like, if it was your turn to look out the side of the curtain, this man was always knocking on my door, and it'd be like, don't open the door, that priest is on the front of the doorstep. So everyone would hide behind the couches and the chairs, try and, because this priest guy was knocking on the door. He even sent people to my court case, 2 little old ladies, they're my friends now. And I'm sitting in the courtroom, the lawyers are telling lies about me because I had money. And these ladies are smiling at me. I didn't know who these women are. So I said, are you in the right courtroom? And one of the ladies goes, yeah, you're Owen. I said, I don't know who you are. We Pastor Ken's friends. I thought, oh my gosh, it's the Christians, right? What do these people want? They're so relentless. She goes, do you know Pastor Ken? I said, what do you want? I said, we just want to come support you today. He can't make it today. And I said, do you know why I'm in court? I said, no. I said, listen, I'm not really a nice person. I'm pretty messed up. I smoke drugs, I've got guns, and I'm going to prison for a long time. Anyway, one of the ladies goes, do you know Jesus loves you? So anyway, this is that Jesus stuff again. And then I just said, went home. I'm trying to smoke crack, and you wouldn't believe it. Okay? 3 o'clock in the morning, my phone rings, and it's Pastor Ken. I said, what do you want? And he goes, oh, are you okay? And I said, no, I'm not okay. He goes, what are you up to? I'm trying to smoke crack until you ring. And he goes, how's that working for you? I said, well, it ain't. And he goes, well, I'm praying for you. I said, you what? He goes, I'm praying for you. I said, listen here, Pastor Ken, don't ever come to my house again. I'm not interested in your books or your buildings or singing your songs and dancing in your building. And I just said, go away. And I hung the phone up. 7 o'clock in the morning, would you believe it? Ding dong. It's just the little pastor standing on my front doorstep. My eyes are real black and blue. I have no sleep. And I said, you're a really relentless old man, aren't you, Pastor Ken? And he said, yeah. Do you want to come to our place? I said, I don't want to go anywhere with you. I told you, don't even ring my phone. You don't want to see me angry. And he goes, well, I'm not afraid of you. She said, what? Yes, I'm not afraid of you. So anyway, tricked me into coming to his place, and he wanted to take me somewhere special. It was 10 o'clock at night. I couldn't believe it, man. And he goes, let's go. And I said, go where? Go to the special place. It's 10 o'clock at night. He goes, yeah. So we started to go towards Coolangatta, and I used to drink at this pub. I got really excited. I thought, he wants to go there for a drink. I said, we're going in there for a drink. He goes, we're not going to the pub. I said, what? We're not going to the pub. Really confused. I looked across the road. There's the dancing girls, the strip club. I said, do you want to go watch the girls? He goes, we're definitely not going in there. And anyway, we got to this park, and there were all these homeless people, like I just explained to you about what I was. I never got out of the car, and I just watched. I didn't know what he was doing, but the people, they weren't offended. Otherwise, they would have just got up and left. So when he came back to the car, I just said, listen, what are you trying to tell me? And he goes, listen, do you know anything about God, Jesus? I said, are you Jesus? He goes, no, I'm not Jesus, but have a look over the back seat. What do you see? Blankets, clothes, and sandwiches. And he goes, you haven't met my wife, Jean, yet, but Owen, she makes those sandwiches, and every Friday we just come out here, and our hope is just to find people who are just lost and broken, have got just nothing going for them in life. And this is how we serve God. In that instant, I knew my life was just absolutely, it was lost. It was a dark place. And I started crying, and I said, can you help me? And he goes, please don't be offended, but this is what I know about you. He said, Owen, you're a drug addict. I said, yeah. Newsflash, Owen's a drug addict. Yeah. Looks like you got many problems. You're probably going back to prison. I said, yeah, I'm probably going back to prison. I am going back to prison. And he goes, do you have peace in your life? I said, I don't have any peace in my life. He said, let's go home. We'll talk about it in the morning. When I came out, I was looking for the door, and he goes, what are you up to? And I said, I'm out. This is just dumb. I'm going. He goes, please don't go. I said, why is that? He goes, you can stay with us if you choose. I said, what would you say something like that? And he goes, because my wife and I would love you, Owen. I said, I'm having a hard time trying to understand what you know about me. Right now, at home, I've got guns. I smoke crack. I'm off my rockers, and I'm just not worthy of your time. Why don't you pick somebody else on the park bench? He goes, Owen, you're not going to understand these words, but God has purpose and a plan for your life, give you hope, give you a future. I didn't really understand what those words meant, but I knew that he cared. Why? Because I saw what he did to the homeless people, feeding them food and blankets and stuff like that. And I was captivated in my heart for their compassion for people they didn't know. And so I never woke up. I never came to Christianity through a building called church or even reading a book called the Bible. If that's what Jesus looked like living in that pastor and his wife and others who never try to convince me that I should become a Christian, man, I'll tell you, I wanted in because of the love factor as they had for people. I lost my father. I was 15 years old, but this little old man and his wife going out and meeting people that didn't know really touched me in the heart. And so along the line, I gave my heart to the Lord, and I ended up pleading guilty to a series of armed robberies when I was on the methamphetamine, and I went back to prison. As a result of those charges, I was exited out of Australia in 2009 as one of the first 501 that you'll hear in the newspaper. 501s being exited out of Australia. It's probably 4,000 New Zealanders that have been exited out of bad character. And so I came back to New Zealand, not really sharing my story with my family, which was hard to try and build bridges because all I know is Owen's just gone off the rails and he's just such an embarrassment, probably. That's what I was thinking. And but when I sat down and talked with my mum, I just said, she goes, where did I go wrong? I said, you didn't go wrong. Mum, I was broken. I'd never been rejected in a relationship before. And just the first people that came into my life were gangsters. They took me in. And I said, I just fell into a trap. I didn't know how to get out of it. But I've done a lot of things in my life, Mum, I said I'm not proud of, but I'm actually really, really grateful that I could get to come home at least anyway. And since then, my friend, someone spoke into my life. It was a little lady named Heidi Baker. And she said, there's a young man listening to me right now. She was speaking at church. She said, God is about to give you plane tickets and visas into nations. You're going to go to 30 nations, and you're going to be traveling, just words to that effect anyway. And so, as I was saying to you, Switzerland has been my 51st nation. Unofficially, the 52nd nation I rode into from Zermatt, which is another ski resort, a couple of weeks ago. You can ride into Italy. And so I've been into Italy. Now, the reason in the last 12 years, what I've been doing is humanitarian projects all over the world. I've met the most incredible people, just people, all right, who work with underprivileged, into prisons, into all sorts of stuff, human sex trafficking. And so when I came back to New Zealand, because I was away 11 months of the year for the last probably 8 years, I'd come home for like a month, and then all of a sudden I'd be up in Syria, I'd be in Iraq, I'd be in Pakistan, I'd be in North Korea. You got to remember, this is a man who's got 12 pages of criminal convictions. My life story is not hidden before government agencies, security people. In fact, when I came back from visiting 8 Muslim nations in 1 year, I was held up by the New Zealand government for about 6 hours because they were saying, like, what the heck do you do? I said, beat the poor and clothe the homeless. They went, what do you mean by that? And I went, I just share stories. And they said, where do you get all your money from? I just said, just random people. Well, random people just give you money all the time. You stayed at these hotels. I said, my friends own them. They own them. Yeah, they're billionaires. Like, they just keep going in and out of this room asking the same questions. I said, mate, you asked me that 4 hours ago, same question. I said, my life story is not hidden before you. This is just actually what I do. And so, as I said before, the only nation I cannot get it back into at the moment is Australia. But that's about to change. And the reason why that's about to change is, as I said, I'm going to make reference to God again. He has a plan and a purpose for my life story. If you've got a person that's coming out of prison and they want to have restoration, it's hard for them to think that they could ever leave New Zealand, maybe visit another nation without having to face the questions. Do you have criminal convictions? Have you been deported from any nation? And so I like these webinars because once you put them out, they're the evidence that my life is not hidden before government officials, and it gives them an opportunity to have a look at character reference. So if you have a person who just gone off the rails, mine was obviously broken relationship, didn't know how to handle the heart things and the head things, and as a result, that's what happened in my life. But then there's the restoration process, which you have a look at now, the character and the principles in our lives which keep us grounded. And that's what I want to share with you now is that kindness and generosity is something that every human, whether you're Christian or Hindu or Buddhist, it doesn't really matter. There has to be principles in our lives which shows kindness, shows generosity. And so when I came back to New Zealand, I felt led that walking down the street, I saw this broken people like I was. And so I thought, well, how do we make a difference in someone's life who's broken? And so I thought, well, maybe we create a space of friendship. And in the friendship space, we get to share with people, about what's going on and what's brought them to that place of brokenness. And so it's a process for many people. I met many wealthy people as well that are broken and trapped in their heart. They have everything that money can buy, but then they're trapped in something that's traumatized them and they don't know how to break free from it. So building connections within the community, I was able to start a street ministry, which was open to all sorts of people. Alan Melville Centre, Josephine Bartley and her crew from the Auckland Council gave me a space at the Alan Melville Centre. I think we're the only group that doesn't have to pay any rent, which is really amazing. And so every Wednesday, I have a team of most amazing people that are stewarding the work that I started. They are now registered under Shining Light Community. My group is called Humanitarian New Zealand, and we've been feeding the homeless, whether it was outside the library for the last 5 or 6 years now. And most of the people I work with have, one of my good friends is who's just lost their job due to COVID, was an amazing life skills, court advocacy, wraparound services to help people journey from that place of, I don't know how to pay the rent, don't know how to live in a house, don't know how to navigate through court processes. So we deal with all those aspects of restoration. And so that's been really, really key, is finding people who are really good at what they do. And then in that space, one of my good friends is a property developer. He turned around and said, Owen, do you want a house? I thought, great. Can I go around and have a look at it? So I went around to have a look at this house and I thought, it's really broken. And I said in my heart to God, this house is real broken. He goes, well, you can fix it if you choose. So I went, I'd rather go to the gym. He goes, well, you can go to the gym if you want. And anyway, I shared with a couple of friends of mine. They said, we actually like what you do, and give us the address. And they went around to have a look at it. And he said, mate, we want to help you fix that thing up. And in that 7 or 8 weeks, all my friends got around me in the community. They put down a paintbrush. They come in and their skill sets and building. And we restored that house in Henderson. It's 120 years old. It looked like something out of $1 million place in Ponsonby right now, on a $1 million property. And so one of the ladies, she's an artist, she she drew a couple of paintings for trafficking, all that sort of stuff, and all the beds and everything were donated. And when we're talking thousands of dollars worth of furniture and TVs were donated, and that ugly house turned into an amazing property. And so the TV came along, and they captured that story. And I was able to thank all the many people. There must have been about 20 different companies that donated paint or wood or whatever it was to fix that house up. And so these three girls were looking at that TV interview, and they got a hold of me, and they did family violence and refuge. And so they were saying, well, what are you going to do with the house? I said, I don't know, what do you do? They said, we do refuge. I went, that sounds really good. I don't know how to run a refuge. A couple of days, come and get the keys. And so I gifted them a house to steward. And so for the last year, they had been healing families and women that had come out of violent gang relationships. And, you know, the amazing thing is that we don't have to put people into broken houses. They walk straight into that house and everything's new. The curtains, the smell of the paint, the bathrooms and everything are painted. It's a beautiful house. And, you know, just imagine that, because most of the life people are just given broken stuff. You know, I mean, that's the value that we put on people. You just give them an old pair of shoes and an old top that you don't want to wear, but not in this house. And so I knew that after a year, that house would have to move it. And so my friend said, you have to actually move that house. And so I met up with some other friends and I said, listen, who could we gift the house to? He said, what do you mean? I said, I want to gift the house. I want the legacy of this work to continue. And so Panya Newton, she's a lawyer, she's an activist that stood on Ihu Matau. And she took on the big corporation Fletcher's. And she actually won that court case. Anyway, these people were telling me about that she has a family of 15 living in one house. I thought, why don't we gift that house to them with everything in it? And so we met with Panya. I said, I don't know you at all. I don't really know much about the Ihu Matau stuff, but my friend has recommended you, and would you like a house? She said, can I go around and have a look at it? So she went around and had a look at it, and she said, all this stuff. And I went, all this stuff in it. We'd love to donate it to you. So in April, that house is going to be moved onto that actual site in Ihu Matau for a family who's just inherited the kindness and the generosity of many people in New Zealand. And so I'm looking to steward other people's houses. Even if they're old ones, we'll do them up, and we'll want that work to continue. You know, family violence is a big issue in New Zealand. It's really a subject that people don't really want to talk about, what happens behind closed doors in New Zealand. And so to my experience of working with restoration work with people, you've got to create a space of friendship to be able to actually sit with people and say, man, what's going on in your life? And they won't be offended because you built a space where you can speak into it. What most people in New Zealand and other places don't recognise is that someone might have fallen on hard times. So we generally just say, oh, that guy just sits outside that shop, you know, all the time and just begs for money, and that sign says he wants to work, but he doesn't actually want to. I said, yeah, probably a bad behaviour, but have you ever considered that could be someone's mum, someone's dad, someone's brother, sister, auntie, or uncle? Something went wrong for them to want to eat out of a rubbish bin. And I said, so going back to the principles of life, what if, you know, there's a dream in someone's heart, and what if restoration for them looks like we could mediate for them so that they could go back home to mum and dad, that they could look forward to possibly, you know, working at a job that they actually want to do. That's another thing that we found out, is that a lot of people are working jobs they actually don't like doing. And so they come home grumpy. I said, do you have any joy in your life? No, can't afford to go away and do anything. So that's half the problem, is people are working stuff they actually don't like doing. It's not going to work when they go home. So, Yeah, my life story is multifaceted in the way that I want to find solutions for people. So branding, even in the real estate business, is really big, because people got to go, who are you? So when I tell stories about what I've shared tonight, there's many people you have not met that lift my arms up and have the same heart as me. I just do life with people, whether you're a biker, whether you're a Christian, whether you're a Hindu, whether you're a Muslim, doesn't matter to me. I don't have to try and convince people that they should love God, but like, God has been part of my story, and that's why I make reference to that, because of the principles. And so, yeah, I've earned my way back into having good character. Last year, I was nominated for the local Kiwi Bank New Zealander of the Year, and same as this year. I always knew that I wouldn't become a finalist within the last 6 of that, but however, you're looking at a man that's done, prison in Australia, done terrible things, but I just did not sit there and do nothing. There were just the most amazing people like Pastor Ken and others that saw something and they restored me. And it was a process. And I thought, well, man, I really need this. So I've worked so hard to be able to stand in the space and speak to people. No, you're not useless. You can become whatever you want. And through these connections, I just make phone calls. I don't have to rely on the government really for anything, because of the kindness of people that I know in the workspace, in the court space, in the police space. I just make phone calls. And it's really exciting that, 12 years on, I'm still doing what I'm doing, but on a bigger scale, so that others can find hope somewhere,
Oh, and I'm just blown away, mate. Just absolutely blown away with that story. And I had a heap of questions that I wanted to ask you, but I think you've answered them all anyway. You probably don't realise, but you just spoke for 45 minutes non-stop. And it was just, just fabulous, mate. Just absolutely fabulous. The big thing that I think the message that shines through is that we've all got hope. That's what you've shared with us so much today, is that and we titled this webinar "Coming Back from Absolute Despair," and where you came back from was just that had to be the bottom of the bottom, and that is despair. And you've shown what great hope can give you and provide for you. But I think that the big thing that I admire in you is that you're not just sitting back and saying, "I got myself out of it." You're actually going to the world, not just New Zealand, not just to Auckland. You're going to the world and giving it hope and sharing that story. I can imagine how many lives will be saved, will be brought back from either suicide or being killed themselves, or a lost life. And I love the fact that you refer to those people as having a mother or a father or a child or a brother or a sister. And we don't think about that, when I must admit, and I live in the city in Auckland, and I see homelessness becoming a massive issue there now, as you'll be fully aware. And it just seems to be almost by the month it's growing. And I think what we're going through currently just seems to be making it an even bigger problem. And I know every one of those people now I'll look at quite differently, just because I've listened to you today. And I'd have to wish that a lot of the people that have tuned in today, and we're going to have a lot of people tell other people to come and watch this, because we've recorded it. We want it up there for everyone to see and listen. But I think everyone's going to look at those people differently after today's talk. Mate, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for number one, getting up or staying up this late. But that sharing that story has been uniquely special for me, but also I'm sure for a lot of the people that have tuned in today. So thank you very, very much. Really appreciate what you've done here. And hopefully when you get back to Auckland, doesn't sound like it'll be a while yet. But,
Yeah, probably will.
We'll catch up in person maybe. And yeah, I'd like to shake your hand and meet you.
Oh, it's great. Hey, thank you for the opportunity for me to be able to share some keys to life. You know, if you've got kids, never say negative things to your kids, because words have power to create life or death, you know, and love is a huge factor of anything that we're doing. Remember, you don't have to give homeless people money. You'll find that most people, it's free to just say, hello, how are you? There's someone. Yeah. And so, you know, live with these principles and believe that your word of encouragement is going to stop people, some people right in that heart of the moment, from wanting to commit suicide, as you said, or give up hope. And so, like, as I said many times to people, is New Zealand's got a culture of saying, I can work this stuff out from myself and I don't need your help. But if you were to ask people, who would you go to right now? Who could you ask who would just open their doors up to you and let you in? And I can tell you that most people won't even be able to open their hand. And so, like, don't think that people don't care. Find someone actually you can offload onto. There's got to be someone, and it's okay to vent frustration, because healing really starts from opening the heart up and just saying, hey mate, I'm listening in. I might not have the solutions, but I care. And these become the testimonies from here on in that give people hope. You know, allow people to speak into your life, get involved in having a look at stories, testimonies which bring hope in the things you're doing, and keep connected.
Thank you, Owen. Really appreciate it. All the best to you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
God bless you all.
Yeah.